The night it finally broke, nothing dramatic happened. No screaming, no thrown plates, no neighbors peeking through thin curtains. It was just quiet, too quiet for a marriage that was supposed to be alive. I sat at the small dining table by the window, watching the city bleed into twilight. The rain had started as a mist around 5, and by 7 it had settled into a steady curtain, streaking the glass and turning the streetlights into soft, trembling halos. The pasta on my plate had gone cold. Her seat across from me stayed empty. The chair bothered me more than the silence. That stupid, empty chair. It had a faint dent in the cushion where she usually sat, one leg slightly uneven so it rocked if you pushed it with your foot. I used to joke that it leaned toward me the way she did when she laughed. Tonight, it just leaned into absence. My phone lit up again. Running late, don't wait up, sorry. No kiss emoji, no heart. Just the same copy-paste line she'd been sending for weeks. Work, clients, deadlines, emergencies, all the things a modern city happily provided to people who wanted somewhere else to be. I read the text twice, then put the phone face down. The hum of the fridge, the occasional car hissing through wet streets, the ticking wall clock, each sound felt louder than it should. The apartment smelled faintly of garlic and oversteeped coffee, a mix of tonight's failed dinner and this morning's rushed start. This was how the distance began, not with a fight, with absences that no one argued about. At first it was subtle. She started coming home later. Traffic, she'd say, dropping her bag by the door with a sigh. She looked tired and guilt would flicker through me. Maybe she really was exhausted and here I was, selfishly wanting more of her. She'd eat standing by the counter, fork scraping the plate while she scrolled on her phone, then disappear into the shower. I told myself marriage went through phases. Everyone said so, but those little things began to pile up. She stopped reaching for my hand when we crossed the street, sat on the opposite end of the couch, turned her body slightly away in bed, just enough that our backs no longer fit like puzzle pieces. Her laughter, the kind that used to fill a room, became sharper and more selective. I'd hear it through the bathroom door as she talked to Marissa from work or Sam from the design team. Whenever I walked in, the call would end within seconds. "Battery's low," she'd say. "I'll call them back." I wanted to believe her. God, I really wanted to. The night I stopped believing wasn't the night I found proof. It was earlier, a Tuesday, gray and unremarkable. She was in the kitchen, half-dressed, blouse hanging open, while she tried to drink coffee and answer an email at the same time. Her hair was twisted up in a careless bun, a pencil jammed through it. I remember thinking she looked so human in that moment, so much like the girl I'd met 7 years ago in a coffee shop when she'd spilled latte on my laptop and apologized with frantic eyes. "Hey," I had said softly that morning in the kitchen, standing in the doorway. "Sit down, I'll make the coffee. You're gonna be late anyway, might as well be late and breathing." She glanced up at me just for a second and I saw it, the flinch. Not annoyance, not anger, guilt. It flashed across her face like a cloud passing over the sun, there and gone, but it changed everything. "I'm fine," she muttered, closing her blouse with one quick, almost defensive movement. "Seriously, I've got it." She didn't kiss me goodbye that day, didn't even pretend to forget, she just didn't. That was when my stomach began to live in a permanent knot. Weeks later, I noticed the little things. A second phone charger in her work bag, new lingerie I hadn't seen her wear at home, a sudden obsession with her appearance on days she claimed to be too tired to go out with me. The way she smiled at messages she wouldn't show me, thumb hovering over the screen like she was protecting a secret. The city became part of the problem somehow. It gave her places to disappear into, late-night bars with dim lighting, hotel lounges, networking events that always ended after midnight. I'd lie awake, listening to the rain tap against the window, picturing her in taxi headlights that cut through the night, sitting beside someone else who knew why she flinched when I said, "I love you." The night everything collapsed started like any other. It was a Friday. I had left work early, something I rarely did because I wanted to make an effort. It felt almost naive, like showing up to battle with flowers, but I did it anyway. I went to her favorite bakery 3 blocks down, the one with the overpriced tiramisu she loved, and carried the small white box home like it was some kind of offering. The apartment was quiet when I unlocked the door. The air felt wrong, not in a dramatic way, just slightly off, like walking into a room where someone had been crying a few minutes ago. Her coat wasn't on the hook, her shoes weren't by the door. On the kitchen counter, her mug sat in the sink, ring of coffee clinging to the sides. Next to it, her usual chaos, a set of keys, a lipstick without its cap, a folded receipt, and her tablet. The screen had gone dark, but a faint notification light blinked in the corner. I don't know why I picked it up. Maybe because I'd been avoiding it for so long. Maybe because a part of me already knew, and the only thing worse than confirming the truth was continuing to live in a half-life of suspicion. I tapped the screen. It opened without a password. The messaging app was already on top, a conversation pinned to the top of the list, a name I'd seen before, mentioned casually as part of some big campaign at her firm. Evan, creative director. The last message preview read, "Can't stop thinking about last night." My hands went cold. The bakery box slipped from my hand and landed on the counter with a soft thud. The little plastic fork inside rattled like tiny bones. I told myself not to open it, that there was still a version of reality where this was nothing, a misunderstanding, a bad joke between colleagues. Then another message popped up before I could move. "When can I see you again? I hate sneaking around like this." The room tilted. The hum of the fridge became a roar. My thumb hovered over the thread, then tapped. The full conversation bloomed across the screen. The hotel name, the descriptions of the way she smelled when she walked into his room, the complaints about how distant I'd become, how I didn't understand her anymore, how our apartment felt like a prison of expectations. There were photos. Her half-smile in soft yellow light, eyes only for him. The rain outside intensified, as if the sky had been waiting for this moment to finally let go. I did not scream. I did not throw the tablet. I did not call her. Instead, I walked into the bedroom. Her side of the bed was unmade, sheets twisted like a storm had passed through in the morning rush. The closet door stood half open, a faint scent of her perfume hanging in the air, floral, warm, painfully familiar. I sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at the space where she usually slept, the small dip in the mattress that matched the one in her dinner chair. Something inside me broke, but it didn't shatter loudly. It cracked quietly like ice splitting under slow pressure. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Staying late again, don't wait up, love you." "Love you," now she added it. I stared at the words for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. There was so much I could have said, questions I could have asked, bargains I could have made because I was still, stupidly, in love with her. Instead, I turned off my phone. I packed a small bag, just clothes, toothbrush, passport, a notebook, nothing that would make a sound when I left. In the hallway, I paused by the dining table. The empty chair watched me like a witness. In the kitchen, tiramisu leaked from its box, cream slowly collapsing under its own weight. I wrote nothing. No note, no goodbye, no explanation. When I closed the door behind me, the latch clicked with a softness that felt cruel. The corridor smelled of old paint and someone's distant cooking. The elevator took an eternity to arrive, doors opening with a tired sigh. As I stepped into the rain-soaked night, the city swallowed me in its indifferent glow. I walked without direction, bag hanging from my shoulder, heart pounding in a strange, numb rhythm. I had discovered everything, and I left without a word. Behind me, 3 stories up, a dim apartment window glowed against the rain. Her world, about to collapse in on itself when she realized I was gone. But for now, the only sound was water hitting pavement and the quiet question I didn't yet know how to answer. If she came looking for me, what would I say? The first night away, sleep didn't come. I checked into a small business hotel across the river, the kind of place people used for layovers and conferences, not for collapsing marriages. The lobby smelled faintly of lemons and industrial cleaner. The woman at the front desk barely looked up as she slid the keycard across the counter. Room 704, city view, 1 king bed. Inside, everything was aggressively neutral, beige walls, dark brown desk, generic framed art of some nameless skyline. The air conditioning hummed steadily. The curtains were half open, letting in the wash of orange and white from the streetlights below. I dropped my bag on the floor and stood in the middle of the room, unsure what to do with my hands. Leaving had been a single, decisive movement. Existing afterward was 1,000 small, uncertain ones. I turned my phone back on. Missed calls. 0 messages, 0. It was still early, I told myself. She was working late. She'd probably just walked into the hotel bar with him, laughed at something he said. Maybe she'd put her phone on silent so she could give him the attention she'd stopped giving me. The thought burned more than the betrayal itself. I placed the phone face down on the desk and opened the small notebook I had thrown into my bag. The pages were mostly blank, save for a few work sketches and a list of groceries from months ago. I stared at the empty paper for a long time before writing the date at the top. Then, without planning to, I wrote, "She cheated. I left." The words looked wrong, like they belonged to someone else's story, like the kind of thing people listened to on late-night YouTube channels, voiceovers filling the dark while they scrolled through comments about revenge and forgiveness. I felt like I'd stepped out of my own life and into a narrative I didn't remember agreeing to. Around midnight, my phone lit up. One message, her name. "Hey, my phone died earlier. Just got back to the office. Everything okay?" I stared at the lie wrapped in casual concern. From the window, I could see the river cutting through the city like a glistening scar, reflections of neon signs rippling on its surface. Somewhere beyond that water was our apartment, still holding the shape of my absence. I typed and erased a dozen replies. Check your tablet. Who is Evan? How long? Instead, I locked the phone and walked into the bathroom. The mirror above the sink showed a man who looked older than he had that morning. Lines seemed deeper, eyes hollow. I turned on the tap and let cold water run over my hands, the sound filling the silence I couldn't bear. I slept in pieces that night, short bursts of shallow dreams. Her laughing with him in a hotel lobby, her key turning in our front door to find nothing but my echo, the empty chair at the table asking questions I couldn't answer. At 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my own name. For a moment, I thought she was standing at the foot of the bed, apologizing, crying, begging. But the room was empty, just the droning air conditioner and the faint rumble of trucks on the bridge. I checked my phone again, 5 missed calls. 3 new messages. Where are you? Babe, this isn't funny. Please call me, I'm freaking out. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the messaging app on my own device and scrolled to a thread with a name I had never tapped on before. Evan, creative director. It took only a few minutes to find him online. His work profile, his public social media pages, the project photos he'd posted proudly. He lived in the same city, not far from us. His bio was full of words like vision, passion, connection. I clicked through pictures of his life, dinners with colleagues, campaign celebrations, selfies from hotel rooms that looked too familiar. There was one photo that made my breath catch. A shot taken in a dimly lit rooftop bar. Behind him, framed by blurred city lights, was the faint outline of someone with a profile that looked a lot like my wife's. The caption read, "Best nights are the ones you're not supposed to talk about." The rage came then, not explosive, but thick and suffocating, like smoke filling a closed room. I imagined walking into his office the next day, dropping their printed messages on his desk, watching his confident face crumble. I imagined calling his boss, his clients, his family, tearing his life open the way they'd torn mine. The fantasies were detailed, revenge always is. But underneath the anger, grief sat quietly, heavier than everything else. Because even if I destroyed his career, exposed every secret, it wouldn't give me back what I really wanted. The woman who used to fall asleep on my chest with her hair covering half my face, whispering that she felt safest right there. Around dawn, exhaustion finally pulled me under. When I woke, the room was pale with early light. The city outside sounded softer in the morning, muted engines, distant horns, the occasional siren. I checked my phone. 12 missed calls, 9 messages. Please, I'm scared. Did something happen? If this is about me working late, can we talk? Are you at your brother's? At least tell me you're okay. The irony almost made me laugh. She wanted reassurance from the man she'd abandoned. I didn't go to work that day. I emailed my manager, wrote something about a family emergency. The reply came back within minutes. Take the time you need. Time. That was all anyone ever offered when they had no idea how to fix anything. I walked along the river instead. The sky was still overcast from the night before, clouds heavy but not yet breaking. People hurried past me in coats and scarves, coffee cups in hand, oblivious to the way my world had shifted. To them, I was just another man walking alone, hands in pockets, face turned toward nothing. I thought about calling a friend. About saying the words out loud. She cheated. But shame glued my tongue to the roof of my mouth. Because somehow, betrayal always feels like a reflection of your own failure. As if someone else's decision to lie says something about your worth. By noon, my phone buzzed with a new tone, a notification from our shared banking app. She had tried to send money to a hotel, the same hotel from their messages. It was like a spotlight on the stage of their affair. Her panicked payment, maybe for a room they'd booked, maybe to check if he was there. I stared at the transaction request and declined it. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. This time I answered. Where are you? Her voice was frayed, thinner than usual. Background noise suggested she was on a street, cars whooshing by. You're scaring me. Check your tablet, I said quietly. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. A long pause. What? Your tablet, I repeated. The messages, the photos, check them. Silence stretched. I heard her breathing quicken. A car horn blared close to the line. Please, she whispered. Please tell me you didn't. I did. Another pause, this one longer, heavier. I could almost picture her face, the color draining, eyes widening, fingers shaking as they reached for the device that had documented everything she thought I'd never see. This isn't what you think, she started, words tumbling now desperate. You're sleeping with him, I said. It's exactly what I think. The street around me blurred as my eyes stung. It's complicated, she stammered. You've been so distant, and I laughed, the sound came out raw and humorless. You rewrote our history with him, I said. You told him I didn't see you, that you felt trapped. You turned our home into a story where you were the victim and I was the villain. I was lonely, she whispered. You were always working, always stressed, always tired. So you fixed your loneliness with a hotel room. She said nothing. A gull screamed overhead, circling the river. The wind picked up, cold against my face. Where are you? She asked again, softer. Please, come home. We can talk. We can fix this. I swallowed hard. My throat felt thick. There's nothing to fix, I said. There's only what you chose. Don't say that, she begged. Please don't say it like it's over. I made a mistake, I know that, but we can get help. Therapy, anything. I'll end it with him, You already told him you loved him, I cut in. You already spent nights with him that you lied about to me. You already looked me in the eye and said you were just tired while you were giving the best of you to someone else. She started crying then. Or maybe she'd been crying the whole time and I was just hearing it clearly now. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I could control it, and then You didn't trip and fall into his bed, I said gently. You walked there, again and again. A car splashed through a puddle nearby, spraying cold water onto my shoes. I barely felt it. Please tell me where you are, she whispered. I'll come to you. I'll explain everything, just don't disappear on me like this. The words hit something deep. Don't disappear on me. I had spent months watching her do exactly that in slow motion. I need space, I said finally. I need to remember who I am when I'm not being lied to. So that's it, she asked. You're just going to leave. After everything we've been through. The unfairness of the question made my eyes close. Yes, I said. After everything we've been through, I'm leaving. Before she could respond, I ended the call. The river moved steadily beside me, indifferent to human drama. As I slid the phone back into my pocket, a painful clarity settled in. This wasn't just about her and him anymore. It was about me. About whether I would spend the rest of my life orbiting the wreckage of her choice, or step away and build something new from the ruins. I stood there for a long time, until the gray sky finally opened up and rain began to fall again, soft and insistent. By the time I turned back toward the hotel, my hair and coat were soaked, but the first threads of something unfamiliar had begun to weave through the grief. Not forgiveness, not yet, just the faintest outline of resilience. That night, as I lay on the too-firm hotel mattress listening to water drip from my jacket in the bathroom, my phone lit up one more time. An unknown number, a short message. Are you the husband? Beneath it, a signature. Nevin's ex. It took a week before I replied to the message from Evan's ex. The first few days blurred into one another. Room service trays, coffee that tasted like cardboard, aimless walks through streets that no longer felt like they belonged to the life I'd built. The hotel staff began to recognize me, their polite nods a quiet acknowledgement of a man who always seemed to be going out alone and coming back alone. Her messages didn't stop. They shifted. Day 1, panic. Please just tell me you're alive. Day 3, defense and bargaining. I know I messed up, but you leaving like this is cruel. I only met him a few times. It didn't mean anything. Day 5, desperation. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about you walking out that door, and I can't breathe. I read them all and answered none. Instead, on the 7th evening, as the sky turned from gray to that deep indigo that makes window lights look like small, separate worlds, I opened the message from the unknown number again. Are you the husband, Evan's ex? I typed yes. Her reply came quickly, as if she'd been waiting with the phone in her hand. I'm sorry, I know this is weird, but I think we're tangled in the same mess. We agreed to meet in a coffee shop halfway between my hotel and the neighborhood, where, according to her profile photo, she lived. It was raining again the day we met, of course. The city seemed determined to make my memories of this time monochrome, gray skies, wet asphalt, people hunched under umbrellas like they were all carrying their own private storms. The cafe was warm, windows fogged slightly from the heat inside. The smell of roasted beans wrapped around me as I stepped in, a familiar comfort from before my life had split into before and after. She was already there. Sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a mug she didn't seem to be drinking from, dark hair pulled back, eyes tired. She looked up when the bell over the door chimed and studied my face as though checking if it matched the story she'd been living. You must be Daniel, she said. I nodded. You're Maya. We sat, the wood of the chair felt solid under me, an anchor in a world that had become unstable. So, she said after a moment, letting out a breath that was almost a laugh, our partners are sleeping with each other. The bluntness of it was jarring and disarming at the same time. Yeah, I said quietly, they are. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and slid it across the table. Just so you know I'm not some scammer or something, she said. This is him. These are your messages. This is your wife. On the screen, there they were, two lives I'd only imagined in fragments, now rendered in full color. Photos of them together, cropped tightly like the world didn't exist outside of their faces. Words I hadn't seen on the tablet, jokes at my expense, fantasies about running away from everything together, plans for trips they'd never taken with me. I thought I was going crazy, Maya said quietly. He's been distant for months, different cologne, new shirts, always working late. I checked his phone and there she was. At first I wanted to know who she was, so I looked her up, found your social media. Your wedding photos. My throat tightened. In one of those photos, we were standing under a string of lights at our reception, her head on my shoulder, my hand on the small of her back. She was looking at me like I was the only person in the world. I thought maybe you knew, Maya continued, that maybe you were one of those couples with an arrangement, open or broken or something. But then I saw your face. What about my face? I asked. You looked like me, she said simply, like someone who believed in the person standing next to them. We sat in silence for a moment. The barista's voice floated over from the counter, calling out names. Steam hissed. A spoon clinked against ceramic. So you messaged me, I said. She nodded. I didn't know what I wanted from you. An ally, maybe. Someone who understood that this wasn't just a mistake, that this was a series of decisions that shoved both of us out of our own lives. Her words landed with a painful clarity. Part of me had resisted seeing it that way. Calling it a mistake had a softness to it, a built-in apology. A series of decisions sounded exactly like what it was, a deliberate path walked step by step. Have you talked to him? I asked. Yeah, she let out another brittle laugh. He cried, said he's confused, that he loves me but also feels this connection with her he can't explain, said he didn't mean to hurt me, as if it's the intent that matters, not the impact. I thought of my wife's voice on the phone, cracking when she said she was lonely. What are you going to do? I asked. I kicked him out, she said. Or, well, I told him to go stay with a friend until I figure out what I want. He's been staying at a coworker's place since then. He texts me these long apologies, sends me playlists. There's always a song in there with some line about second chances. The corner of my mouth twitched. And you, she asked, what are you going to do? I left, I said. Hotel for now. I don't know what comes next. You still love her. The answer came out before I could censor it. Yes. It felt almost shameful to admit, like saying I still loved the fire that had burned my house down. Maya nodded slowly like she understood. I still love him too, she said. Which is the worst part. If he was a cartoon villain, this would be easier. But he's just a flawed man who made selfish, cowardly choices. And I'm a woman who has to decide whether love is enough to live with that. We talked for over an hour, not just about them, but about ourselves, about the way small disappointments had stacked up in our relationships, the way life had slowly shifted from us to logistics, bills, schedules, work stress, how easy it had been to miss the moment when companionship turned into routine and routine into distance. I'm not excusing them, she said firmly at one point. Cheating is a choice, but I think if we don't understand the gaps that existed, we're going to walk into the next relationship with the same cracks already forming. The next relationship. The idea felt too huge to look at directly. When we finally stood to leave, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. The city looked washed, edges softened. If they try to rewrite the story, Maya said before we parted, if they start telling people you were controlling or unstable or whatever, call me. I'll tell anyone who asks what really happened. Same for you, I said. We exchanged numbers, not as co-conspirators in revenge, but as witnesses to each other's reality. That night back in the hotel room, I found a message from my wife waiting. Please come home. I don't care what it takes. I just want you here. I miss you. I can't do this without you. No mention of him. No admission beyond the earlier mistake. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time since I left, I wrote back more than a sentence. I'm not coming back tonight, I typed. I'll come by in a few days to get some things. We can talk then. Her reply came almost instantly. Thank you. I'll be here. I love you. The words twisted something inside me. Days later, when I finally went back to the apartment, it felt smaller. The lights were dim. The air carried the faint smell of vanilla candles, like she'd tried to soften the atmosphere. The empty chair at the table was no longer empty. She was sitting in it, hands wrapped around a mug of untouched tea. When she saw me, her breath hitched. You look thinner, she said. You look tired, I replied. We stood there for a moment, the space between us thick with everything we'd both imagined saying. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I know you don't want to hear it again, but I am. I've ended things with him, completely. I blocked his number, deleted everything. I told my boss I won't work directly with him anymore. She said it like a list of tasks completed. I met her, I said, the color drained from her face. Her. His ex, the woman he was with while he was with you. She swallowed hard. You talked to her. Yes. What did she tell you? That he said he loved you, I answered. That you both talked about running away. That he told her I was some cold, distant husband who didn't understand you. That you let him believe that. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't look away. I said things I'm not proud of, she whispered. I was angry. I felt unseen. It was easier to make you the villain in my head than to face the ways I was hurting you. With him, I felt vivid again, wanted. Like I was more than just bills and dishes and stress. And with me, I asked. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. With you, I felt safe, she said. So safe that I took you for granted. So safe that I thought you'd always be there, no matter how far I pushed. Silence fell, the refrigerator hummed, steady as ever. I don't know how to come back from this, I said finally, even if I wanted to. I see you now and I see him. I see the hotel rooms, the lies, the version of me you constructed to justify it. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to prove that I choose you, she whispered. If you let me. Her words hung between us, fragile and heavy at once. I don't know if that's what I want, I admitted. She flinched as if struck, then nodded slowly, like she'd been expecting it. I'll give you whatever space you need, she said. Just please don't disappear completely. Don't move to another city or change your number without telling me. I know I don't have the right to ask for anything. But I'm asking. There was that word again, disappear. In the days that followed, I floated between the apartment and the hotel. Some nights I slept in the bed we used to share, a careful distance between us like a neutral zone. Other nights I left before darkness fell, the walls feeling too soaked in memories. We talked, more honestly than we had in years, about how she'd felt like she was fading. About how I'd buried myself in work out of fear of failing her financially, not realizing I was failing her emotionally instead. About the small resentments that had gone unspoken until they found an outlet in someone else's attention. There were nights when it almost felt normal again. We'd laugh at a show or argue about something trivial in that familiar way, and then it would hit, like a shadow crossing the room, the memory of what she'd done. The way she'd chosen him in moments she could have chosen me. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the windows, we sat on the couch, a cautious half-meter of space between us. Do you ever think we could be okay again? She asked. Her voice was almost childlike in its vulnerability. I think we could be something again, I said. I just don't know if that something is what we were, or if it should be. She nodded, eyes glistening. If you leave, she whispered, really leave, will you tell me? Or will I just come home one day and find your side of the closet empty? Her question hung there, suspended between hope and dread. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, the idea had been growing quietly in the back of my mind. A real leaving, not just a temporary exile in a generic hotel room. A life in another apartment, another part of the city, where the empty chair at the table didn't know her name. As the rain softened to a drizzle and the city lights blinked on one by one, she waited, breath held, eyes searching my face for some clue to the future. The future that, whether she liked it or not, no longer belonged only to both of us. The morning everything settled, if settled is even the right word, was quiet. No dramatic showdown, no suitcase dragged down the stairs while neighbors watched, just sunlight. For the first time in weeks, the sky above the city was clear. Light slipped past the curtains and fell across the bedroom floor in soft, angled strips, illuminating the dust motes that drifted lazily in the air. The sound of distant traffic floated up from the street, muted and steady. I lay awake before the alarm, staring at the ceiling. In the space between breaths, there was no anger, just a deep, heavy tiredness. Beside me, the bed was empty. She had started waking up earlier than me recently, making coffee, sitting at the table with her notebook. Sometimes she scribbled in it furiously. Sometimes she just stared out the window, hands wrapped around a mug. We had been living in a strange limbo, not together, not apart. An almost divorced couple practicing how to treat each other gently while deciding if gentleness was enough to stay. The night before, we'd finally said the thing that had been hovering between us. We were sitting at that same dining table, the one that had witnessed both ordinary dinners and extraordinary silences. The empty chair was no longer a symbol, it was just a chair again. We had filled it over and over with truths that hurt and truths that healed a little. I met with a lawyer, she'd said quietly, eyes fixed on her hands. The statement landed without surprise. I figured, I replied. It was just a consultation, she continued quickly. I wanted to understand what it would mean if we. She couldn't say the word. Neither could I. It's okay to say it, I said softly. Divorce isn't a curse word. It's just a reality we might be walking toward. She looked up then, face pale but steady. What do you want? She asked. Really, not what you think you should want or what looks reasonable from the outside. If you could choose without hurting me, what would you choose? The honesty of the question both moved and devastated me, because the answer, if I stripped it of pity and nostalgia, was simple. I want peace, I said. I want to wake up in a place that doesn't feel like a crime scene. I want to eat at a table that doesn't remember the nights you didn't come home. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. And does that place include me? She whispered. There it was, the question everything else circled. I took a long breath, listening to the far-off siren echoing between buildings, the ticking of the clock over the microwave, the low hum of the refrigerator that had become background noise to our unraveling. For a long time, all I wanted was you, I said. You, in any form, you, even if it meant swallowing my doubts and ignoring the tightness in my chest. But now. I paused, the next words cost something to say. Now I don't want a life where I have to convince myself I'm safe, where every time your phone buzzes, a part of me braces, where forgiveness means erasing parts of myself to make room for what you did. She let out a small, broken sound. So no, she said, it wasn't a question. I don't think so, I replied, my voice shaken but firm. Not as your husband, maybe someday as something else, someone who knew you in a different life. She nodded slowly, like a verdict had finally been read aloud in a courtroom we'd both been sitting in for months. Okay, she whispered, okay. We sat there, two people acknowledging the end of a shared story. No one flipped the table. No one stormed out. We just let the words sit. After a while, she cleared her throat. I don't know how to be in the world without you, she admitted. You've been my constant for so long. Even while I was doing what I did, you were the person I came home to, the person I measured myself against. The person I imagined growing old with. There was no defense in her tone anymore, just truth. You'll learn, I said quietly. So will I. That was last night. Now, in the soft light of morning, the decision still sat between us, unchanged. I got out of bed and padded to the kitchen. The tiles were cool against my bare feet. The coffee machine gurgled to life with a familiar sound. As it brewed, I stood by the window and watched the city wake up. No rain today, just clarity. She appeared in the doorway a few minutes later, wrapped in the robe I'd given her 2 birthdays ago. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, eyes swollen but calm. Hey, she said, hey. We moved around each other softly, wordlessly. I poured coffee into 2 mugs, set one in front of her without asking how she wanted it. I still remembered. 2 sugars, no milk. Thank you, she murmured. We sat at the table in silence for a while, sipping. Outside, the sound of the city grew, bus brakes, footsteps on pavement, a dog barking somewhere below. A plane traced a faint line high above the buildings. I found an apartment, I said eventually. Her fingers tightened slightly around the mug. Already. I've been looking, I admitted. Didn't sign anything. I wanted to talk to you first. Is it far? She asked. Not really, different part of town. Near the park we used to go to in the early days. A faint smile ghosted across her lips at the mention of the park. The one where you spilled coffee on that old man's shoes, she said. And he forgave me because you apologized for me, I replied. The memory hung between us, gentle and painful. When do you move? She asked. End of next month, I said, if everything goes through. She nodded. Will you tell people what happened? She asked quietly. Your family, our friends. I'll tell the truth, I said, but not all the details, not to punish you, just because I'm done carrying this alone. She looked down at the table. I deserve worse, she murmured. Probably, I said softly. But I'm not interested in punishing you, I'm interested in leaving. A tear slipped down her cheek, catching the light. She wiped it away quickly, almost angrily. I don't know how to forgive myself, she said. That's your work, I replied, not mine. We finished our coffee. Later, I packed a bag, not the panicked, half-random packing from that first night, but something deliberate, a few shirts. Some books, my laptop, the framed photo my brother took of me at the beach years ago before her. I left wedding photos on the shelf. They belonged to the life that had happened, even if it had broken. At the door, with my bag over my shoulder, I turned back. She stood in the middle of the living room, arms wrapped around herself. The morning light from the window outlined her in soft gold. She looked smaller somehow, but also more real than she ever had when she was lying. I'm sorry, she said one last time. Not as a defense, not as a plea, just as a fact. I know, I said. Will you be happy? She asked. The question was so quiet I barely heard it over the distant rumble of a passing truck. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I know I won't be if I stay like this. She nodded, a small, weary movement. Can I call you someday? She asked. Not soon, just someday to see how you are. Maybe, I said, when it doesn't hurt like this. We stood there looking at each other. No kiss goodbye, no dramatic embrace. Just two people acknowledging that love had existed here and that it had not been enough to make betrayal disappear. I opened the door. The hallway smelled of dust and someone's cooking. Sunlight from a stairwell window spilled onto the floor, painting a bright rectangle near the elevator. I stepped into it, feeling the warmth on my face. As the door closed softly behind me, something in my chest gave way, not with a shattering, but with a slow, relieving exhale. On the street, the city was fully awake. Cars honked. People argued lightly over parking spaces. A child laughed as a dog tugged at its leash. The world, indifferent and steady, kept going. I walked toward the station, bag light on my shoulder. I thought about the man I had been before all this, the one who believed love and loyalty moved in straight lines, the one who thought leaving was always a failure. I wasn't that man anymore. I was someone who had seen the worst of what love could do and still believed in the possibility of something quieter, truer. Maybe not now, maybe not soon, but someday. At the corner, waiting for the light to change, my phone buzzed, a message from an unsaved number. Hi, it's Maya, just checking in. No pressure to reply. Hope today feels a tiny bit lighter than yesterday. I smiled, a small, surprised thing. It did, for the first time since the night I walked out without a word. The morning didn't feel like the aftermath of a disaster. It felt like the cautious beginning of something else, not a happy ending, not yet. Just a man standing in clear morning light, finally learning how to let go. How to let go.